Let's start with the signals that are just confusing noise. We will work our way towards the ones that are definitely watching us. Number 9 is the screaming background, or arcade 2. This is the scientific equivalent of hearing breathing in an empty room. Space is supposed to be a silent vacuum of nothingness. If you point a radio telescope at a dark patch, you expect zero. But NASA decided to double-check that assumption back in 2006. They launched a massive balloon called Arcade 2 into the stratosphere. The goal was to measure the absolute silence of the deep cosmos. It was supposed to be a boring calibration mission for the history books. Let's see exactly what happens when you listen to the void. I will be placing you inside the instrument payload at 100,000 feet. You are floating in the upper atmosphere, shielded from Earth's noise. You turn on the radiometers to listen to the faint heat of early stars. You expect a whisper, but you get a scream. The instrument is instantly blasted with a wall of radio static. It is 6 times louder than every known galaxy combined. Your equipment is not broken, and the calibration is perfect. This is a roar coming from everywhere all at once. That was a terrifying realization for the entire team. But let's try that again, with a better telescope explanation. Maybe we just miscalculated the noise from our own galaxy. We subtract the Milky Way, and we subtract the known radio sources. The roar is still there, and it is massive. It is called the synchrotron background, and it shouldn't exist. There aren't enough radio galaxies in the universe to make this much noise. It implies that the empty space between galaxies isn't empty at all. It is filled with something that is screaming in radio waves. Scientists are currently terrified because the math doesn't add up. Something massive is hiding in the dark patches of the sky. Honestly, that is just background noise compared to this next zombie. Number 8 is the Zombie Satellite LE1. This is a piece of American trash that refused to stay dead. The Lincoln Experimental Satellite 1 launched back in 1965. It was a primitive piece of hardware designed to test radio comms, but the launch went wrong, and the booster failed. It never reached its proper orbit, and it stopped talking in 1967. The batteries died, and the solar panels were useless. It became just another piece of frozen junk floating in the graveyard. That is, until 50 years later in 2013. An amateur astronomer named Phil Williams was scanning the bands. Let's see exactly what happens when you act like a graveyard shift operator. You are sitting in your Radio Shack in the middle of the night. You are tuning your receiver to 237 megahertz. You expect static because nobody uses that frequency anymore. Suddenly, you hear a rhythmic, ghostly sound. It sounds like a breathing pattern, repeating every 4 seconds. That is the sound of a corpse waking up. But let's try that again with some signal analysis. Maybe it is just a reflection bouncing off the metal hull. You track the signal and realize it is coming from the satellite itself. The solar panels are fried, and the battery has been dead for decades. So, how is it transmitting a signal strong enough to reach Earth? The leading theory is even more unsettling than a ghost. The satellite is tumbling end over end in the dark. Every 4 seconds, a twisted solar panel catches a glint of sun. It sends a voltage spike through the rotted wiring directly to the radio. It screams for a second, and then dies again. It has been doing this cycle of death and resurrection for 50 years. It is essentially a zombie screaming in the dark forever. But at least we know what that object is made of. Number 7 is the nuclear star, or Przybylski's star. This is a star that is essentially a cosmic crime scene. It is located about 370 light years away. From a distance, it looks like a standard A-type star. It burns hydrogen and helium just like our sun does. But when astronomers looked at its light spectrum, they panicked. The chemical composition of this star makes absolutely no sense. It is full of elements that should not exist in a star. Let's see exactly what happens when you fly close to it. I will be placing you on a research vessel near the photosphere. You pull out your spectrometer to analyze the atmosphere. Usually, you see iron, or nickel, or maybe some oxygen. Instead, you detect promethium, and einsteinium, and californium. That was a shock, because those are heavy radioactive elements. They have extremely short half-lives and decay rapidly. Finding them in a star is like finding a fresh apple in a dinosaur tomb. But let's try that again, with the implications of that discovery. Einsteinium was only discovered by humans when we blew up a hydrogen bomb. It does not occur naturally in any significant quantity. So, why is this star covered in weaponized radioactive waste? There are 2 terrifying theories for this anomaly. One is that the star is eating a neutron star and choking on it. The other is the island of stability hypothesis gone wrong. Or, it is an extraterrestrial dumping ground for nuclear waste. Some astronomers genuinely suggested an advanced civilization uses it as a landfill. They dump their dangerous isotopes into the star to burn them up. You are looking at the glow of a galactic trash fire. It is weirdly suspicious, but the next one is just gone. Honestly, those stars are just weird chemistry experiments. Now, we are moving into the signals that imply technology. Number 6 is the blinking giant. effect, or the vanishing stars. This is a phenomenon that effectively breaks the laws of physics. Stars do not just delete themselves from reality instantly. They are massive balls of gas that die very loudly. They explode in a supernova, or they fade over billions of years. But the VASCO project found something deeply unsettling. VASCO stands for Vanishing and Appearing Sources During a Century of Observations. They compared old sky maps from the 1950s to modern scans. Let's see exactly what happens when you audit the sky. I will be placing you in front of a blink comparator screen. On the left is a photo of the sky from 70 years ago. There is a bright, massive star sitting in the center. On the right is a photo of the same spot taken yesterday. There is absolutely nothing there but empty darkness. You check for a supernova remnant or a gas cloud. There is no debris field, which means it didn't explode. It just turned off like a light switch. That was a terrifying realization for the astronomers involved. They found at least 100 stars that pulled this disappearing act. But let's try that again with the Dyson sphere hypothesis. Maybe the star didn't die naturally at all. Maybe an advanced civilization built a megastructure around it. They enclosed the star in a shell to harvest 100% of its energy. From our perspective, the star vanished because they closed the door. If that theory is true, we are watching a blackout. We are watching a civilization turn off the lights in the galaxy one by one. It is a quiet apocalypse that we can barely see. But the next signal is not quiet at all. It is screaming. Number 5 is the targeted burst, FRB 121102. This is the signal that decided to put us on a schedule. Fast radio bursts are usually one-off cosmic screams. They blast out more energy in a millisecond than our sun does in a century. Usually, they happen once and never repeat again. But this source, located in a dwarf galaxy, is different. It is the first repeater that follows a strict calendar. Let's see exactly what happens when you track this object. You are pointing the Lovell telescope at the source, 3 billion light years away. For 67 days, you hear absolute silence from the void. Then, like clockwork, the signal wakes up. It begins blasting Earth with high-energy radio pulses. It continues this bombardment for exactly 90 days. Then, it shuts off again for another 67-day nap. That was a cycle that repeated perfectly for years. But let's try that again with the implications of that timing. Nature is rarely that precise over such long distances. A wobbling star usually drifts or changes its period over time. This signal stays locked on its 157-day cycle. This has led to the terrifying alien light sail theory. Imagine a civilization pushing a massive starship with a giant laser. The radio leak from that propulsion system sweeps across the universe. Every time the beam sweeps past Earth, we get the signal. We are essentially watching a galactic traffic report. The timing represents the orbit of their power station. It means someone is traveling through the stars with massive engines, and they are powerful enough to be heard across 3 billion light years. But closer to home, we have a lighthouse. Number 4 is the doorway signal, or the galactic center pulse. This is a heartbeat coming from the monster in our own basement. The center of the Milky Way is a chaotic mess of radiation. It is dominated by Sagittarius A star, our supermassive black hole. Usually, the radio noise from that area is random static, but recently, astronomers found a signal cutting through the dust. It pulses exactly every 76 minutes. Let's see exactly what happens when you fly to the center. I will be placing you in orbit 26,000 light years from home. You are surrounded by swirling gas and crushed stars. The radiation alarms are screaming at you constantly. But every hour and 16 minutes, a distinct blast hits you. It is a sharp pulse of radio energy and X-rays. It is rhythmic and relentless, like a metronome. That was a painful experience for your ship's sensors. But let's try that again with a magnetar explanation. Scientists think this might be a special type of neutron star, but it is spinning too slowly to be a normal pulsar, and it is too bright to be a normal star. It acts more like a lighthouse beacon sweeping the galaxy. It sits right next to the gravitational center of our galaxy. If you were an advanced species navigating the Milky Way, you would use this pulse as a location marker. It is the 0 point for every map in the galaxy. We have just been too deaf to hear it until now. Now we know where the center is, but we are drifting. We are drifting towards something that shouldn't be there. This next one is breaking the laws of gravity. Honestly, being lost is better than being dragged, because right now, we are being pulled into a trap. Number 3 is the broken law, or the Great Attractor. This is a gravitational anomaly that is breaking the universe. According to the standard model, the universe is expanding. Everything should be moving away from everything else. But our galaxy, and thousands of others, are flowing like a river. We are all crashing at 600 kilometers per second towards one spot. It is a point in space known as the Laniakea supercluster. Let's see exactly what happens when you try to look at it. I will be placing you on the bridge of a deep space telescope. You point the sensors directly at the flow of traffic. You expect to see a massive black hole or a giant galaxy, but you see absolutely nothing except dust and stars. That is because the Great Attractor is hiding sliding in the zone of avoidance. It is located directly behind the dense center of our own Milky Way. We are being dragged towards a monster we cannot see. But let's try that again with a gravitational map. If we strip away the visible light and look at gravity, we see a concentration of mass synonymous with a quadrillion suns. It is pulling everything in our corner of the universe into it. Some theories suggest it is a wall of dark matter. Others say it is a bruise from a collision with another universe. Whatever it is, we will arrive there in a few billion years. We are essentially sliding down a drain we can't see, but at least that monster is far away. The next signal came from our literal next-door neighbor. Number 2 is the artificial neighbor, or the BLC-1 update. This is the signal that made skeptics sweat in 2025. It came from Proxima Centauri, which is the closest star to Earth. It is only 4 light years away, which is basically down the street. In 2019, the Breakthrough Listen project detected a spike. It was a narrowband signal at exactly 982 megahertz. Nature does not broadcast on that specific frequency. It looked exactly like a piece of human technology. Let's see exactly what happens when you analyze the data. You are looking at the waterfall plot of the radio signal. Usually, interference from Earth satellites looks choppy and random, but this signal drifts in frequency over time. It changes its pitch in a very specific, smooth curve. That is called a Doppler shift, and it matches the rotation of a planet. Specifically, it matches the movement of a planet orbiting Proxima Centauri. That was the smoking gun that excited the entire world. But let's try that again with the official debunking. Scientists later claimed it was just broken electronics on Earth. They said it was a clock oscillator mixing with a computer screen. But recent analysis has reopened the case with a vengeance. The signal only appeared when the telescope pointed at the star, and the drift pattern is too perfect to be random noise. If it is interference, it is the most unlucky coincidence in history. It implies that our neighbors might be leaking TV signals, and we are just now tuning in to their broadcast. But if that is a whisper, the next one is a drum. Number 1 is the 44-minute anomaly, or GPM J1839. This is the object that has officially broken stellar physics. Neutron stars are supposed to spin fast to stay alive. If they slow down, they lose energy and they die. That is the basic rule of life for a pulsar. But in 2023, we found a ghost. It is an object that blasts radio waves for 5 minutes straight. Then, it goes dark for exactly 22 minutes. Then, it blasts again, like clockwork, forever. Let's see exactly what happens when you stare at it. I will be placing you in orbit around this impossible object. You are waiting for the lighthouse beam to hit you. You wait 20 minutes, and you see nothing but darkness. Physics says this star should be cold and dead. Suddenly, a blast of radio energy hits the ship. It is energetic and coherent and incredibly bright. It screams at you for 5 minutes and then vanishes. That was confusing, but the 2026 update is worse. We found a new mode where it waits 44 minutes. It is slowing down, but it is not dying. It has been doing this since at least 1988. We found it in old archival data, pulsing unnoticed for 30 years. It defies every model of stellar evolution we have. It is too slow to be a magnetar and too bright to be a dwarf. It acts like a machine running on a very slow loop. It is currently the scariest clock in the universe, and it is ticking away while we try to figure out what it is. That is the only one that makes me genuinely nervous. Honestly, I am sick of listening to the void. If something wants to say hello, it can knock on the door. Until then, we are ignoring the phone.